5:41 p.m. in Tamale, and we are very excited to welcome you to Red Clay, which is the venue for the public program of an exhibition project which was launched earlier this year in July, titled Transfers. It's a solo exhibition of Ibrahim Mahama's work, and we'll learn more about that as the program unfolds. But for now, my name is Kwasi Ohene-Ayeh. I'm a co-curator for that project. My co-curator here is Bettina Klein. Please give us a round of applause. Bettina Klein. But we want to, today's program, I'm not sure if everybody has it, but if you have been following SCCA and Ibrahim's posts, you might have seen the website, the link to the website. If you go there, the full program is on the website. But in case you don't have it, I will spell it out for you. www.transfer-s.org. If you go there and you click on the Tamale tab, you see the program. So we are a little late, but we are still on time. The paradoxes of Ibrahim's world. So we can still manage to make it work. We want to first say that Transfers opened in July 8th, on July 8th, and it ran all the way through October 31st in Osnabrück. So, October 1st. So these are the scenes you are catching on the flat screen monitor, and the show was sited in a very busy district of Osnabrück, which is the city we worked in, and we were invited to realize this project by the Kunsthalle Osnabrück. The co-directors are currently here, so I'll just introduce them. Anna Yela is on this side. Please show by hand. You can wave. Anna Yela and Juliana Shikadant. Yeah. Anna and Juliana have been very supportive, with the Kunsthalle as the backbone for this project. We started this work since 2021. So at least the invitation came then, and the research work has been ongoing all the way until the opening. And we inaugurated the show in Osnabrück it was a very compelling show to open and to live through and with. And now that the main exhibition or the outdoor exhibition has ended, it was always planned that we would travel the project to Ghana in some form. And this is the form that we were able to realize. This intangible, discursive kind of a relational and conversational form is how we move the project from Osnabrück to here. We also feel that the questions and the concerns of the exhibition, which we will deal with when time comes, are very complex, and they also go beyond just the exhibition moment. We wanted to invite different perspectives, different angles, to complicate, to disturb, to extend, to complement, and so on, the starting premise. So I will just keep it brief here, but I want to acknowledge our host institutions, which are SCCA first. The partnership is with SCCA, but the sister institutions being Red Clay and Nkrumah Voli-ni are all implied in our programming. So please give a round of applause to our hosts. And We will begin the program with a short tour of the site. We don't take it for granted that everybody knows this site. Even if you know it, it's always, but something new is always happening. So we want to, while we are here, take time to absorb and to live through it a little bit more. So we familiarize ourselves with our environment. But before we do that, please, the artist who is making all of this possible, whose work we were able to engage to respond to these situations, Ibrahim Mahama. Please give it up for Ibrahim. Ibrahim is a very important artist for us, but also for the world, and I'm sure centuries more to come, his practice will be relevant. And so I'll invite our artistic director for SCCA and affiliate institutions, Selom Kuji, to give us a brief introduction, a brief welcome message, and then we can go into a 30-minute tour. Please show some love to Selom Kuji, who is walking up to us at this moment.
Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to you all, and welcome to Red Clay. It's a pleasure to have you all to participate or witness the other side of transfer that's happening in Tamale. And the 4 days we are going to spend over here, we hope that you guys are going to enjoy it and be more interactive and participate in whatever we are going to do. I think the transfer project started a few years ago, and Kwasi linked me or contacted me about having an extension of the program in Tamale. So yes, I discussed with Ibrahim, who was in favor of that, and then from there we started off by doing the administrative aspect of it, and then here we are today to have the program running in Tamale. Yes, since we are a bit late, I won't bother with much talk, and I'll just end by saying welcome to Tamale. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Selom. So how do we proceed? Where do we start the tour? And we can do that now. Or we can start from here. You know? And since Ibrahim is here, he can start from here. Yeah.
Yes. Red Clay came as a studio space of Ibrahim Mahama. Emerged or came as a result of having to turn the initial space, SCCA Tamale, which was originally meant to be a studio space that he started in 2014, but it ended up to be an institution to showcase artists' works, retrospectives, and for making exhibition a research center, a library, and also extend it into artist residency. All of these are in the making. And after opening the space in 2015, SCCA Tamale at full, it's at the center of Tamale. Yeah. And he moved over here and then started building this structure, which began in 2015. And the first exhibition that happened in SCCA Tamale, that was in pursuit of something beautiful. Later on, that was held over there, was on an artist called Kale Winston Kofi Dawson. So the subsequent year, Red Clay was still in its development, but Kwasi Ohene-Ayeh and Tracy Thompson and Ajuama co-curated Ekutia Blindfolded and Sound and Poetics of Peace, which was held at SCCA Tamale and Red Clay. So from then, more programs came, and yes. And at the time in 2020, this building wasn't in this shape. It was filled with water, and it was at its basic stage. It wasn't roofed, so water can pour over here, and it has developed its own character. The curators thought of using it in a very peculiar way by extending the paintings of the artist into life forms by having a water lily over here. So Ibrahim originally conceived this space as a fiscal and a permanent work based on the Manchester International Festival's work titled Parliament of Ghosts in 2019. Maybe he will speak much more about that one.
Yeah, thank you very much. I guess one of the key things about the space is we have Professor Caricature here. He's a very central character to the development of red clay. In 2014, when SCCA, the foundation of SCCA, had started, I think we were in Ibrahim having a conversation, myself, Caricature, and then Dota. And Dota Ajimanose, whom Kwasi and our other colleagues created the first exhibition. He has a brick factory in Koforidua, and we're talking about the possibility of building a studio made out of bricks. I remember in that conversation, I was even talking to Carrie about the trains. And Carrie was like, oh, the trains could be really interesting to use the inner spaces for all kinds of things. At the time, I used to go to the railway to photograph the trains and all that. But at the time, they were cutting the trains into pieces, and I didn't know if I had an interest in buying trains. It seemed so ridiculous in a way. But Carrie was like, yeah, but it's not so ridiculous. So that seed at that point was what actually gave birth to the idea of even thinking about the idea of building bricks, building a studio out of bricks. So Dota and I started working on the process, and then we flew to Tamale one day just for a day trip because I had some pieces of land, and we went around the entire city to see all the different plots of land. And then he was like, "Oh, they're okay, but I wish you had some land a bit outside the city." And had bought this land before, but I was like, me, I have some land in the bush somewhere. Me, I don't think about building any space. And Dota was like, "Oh, let's go and see it. Maybe it could be interesting." So when we came here and he saw it, he was very excited. He was like, "Oh yeah, I think this place is very promising." Of course, at the time I was very young, so I relied on his old wisdom in order in order to be able to make this choice. And we decided, okay, fine, let's build a studio out of bricks. And we started. And once the process started, then everything else came up from there. Because the possibility of building something like this here was immense. Because once it's not in the city like SCCA, so you are not restricted by land. Of course, we had neighbors that had buildings which you'd see around. Some of the buildings belong to our neighbors, so I had to buy those buildings and then we converted them to like the potential residencies. There were some buildings here that we had to break because some of them were not built well. So we had to negotiate different things with the chief and to renegotiate and to reconstitute the entire part of the landscape here in order for the institution to exist. But as maybe when Selom takes you around, or you've seen already the artworks, the collection and all that, the most basic point was that if you're building an artist studio, the question is, what does an artist studio really represent? And what is really the artist studio? Is it a place where the artist makes his work in solitude, which ends up, let's say, in Western models, collections, or things like that? Meanwhile, we've always said that art is born out of precarity, and at the end of the day, it's supposed to represent the best of humanity's freedoms, injustice, like open up further justice and all that. But in contemporary art, of course, since the turn of the century, we haven't really seen much of that happening. You know, if it happens, it's always like an afterthought or something like that. So for us, at least coming from Kumasi and then with Caricature's teachings over the years, we were more considering how do we as artists create a practice that can somehow also be some kind of a social justice tool in itself. So does it if an artist decides that he's going to make a work and the work is sold to a Western collection, the residue in terms of the capital and all that, how can that also manifest in the form of, let's say, institutional structures or even building collections and other things that are actually for the public good? So in the end, unlike the previous generation where maybe you would have to buy a painting and have a collection and hang it in your house, this time collectively, by the artists just making work, it is through consensus labor and everything, the work actually becomes part of a public trust through the studio, through the institutions that are built and everything. So then we, all of us collectively can own it and something like that. So basically that's the idea of red clay in terms of what the studio represents and what it's supposed to do. Yeah, the parliament where we are sitting, that was developed out of the Manchester project in 2000 and it started actually in 2017. And before that, I think 2013, I had part of my MFA project, I had done a project at a railway in Kumasi. And in 2015, 16, Robin, Salom, and Patrick did an exhibition. Also by Kari, I think there was one other student that did an exhibition at the railway before. I've forgotten who it was. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Cellular studios on campus. Yeah. Yeah. We had this project, durational project in Kumasi, which we called it guerrilla exhibitions. We used to have exhibitions in many sites inside the city. Nkrumah had said the gown must go to town. That Mazim seriously and acted on it. It even became the title of one of our exhibitions in Accra. Yeah, so we were doing this. We did this for close to 10 years or more, from 2004 onwards. So Ibrahim's class will be about, yours was 2010, eh? So about the 6th year. Yes. And I think your class was one of the exceptional classes. Also KZS class. Yeah. You want to say something there? Yeah, KZS class was also one of them. They were the ones just before you, or KZS 2 years. So such exhibitions, guerrilla exhibitions, took us to railways, drinking spots, shop bars. Yeah, you could imagine. So we're not just boxed in, the university campus, our cellular students. We're working with women at the heart of the city, the markets, everywhere. And you can imagine someone wanted to just do photography, and that person had to apprentice himself to the fittest at what do you call it, magazine, for at least 1 year before he could come out with the photography. Yes. In the end, you become a fitter yourself and a fitting photographer too. Yes. So that's the kind of spirit work through many practices that are not necessarily art-like. We become artists. So the railway was one of them. And a year or two, was it in 2011? No, 2009 or so. Yeah, one of our students actually did his final exhibition there. And we have also had some of our juries at length. No, railway, the local shed. The mic. Oh, sorry. Around the local shed. Yes, but Robin Riskin and Fuji and Patrick Okanta gave it another spark. Yeah, after Ibrahim had also explored, the same space, and each of these students brought another insight to how spaces can be consulted, not just be used. Yeah. If You Love Me was like what was the cap. After that, I don't think we did any other big projects. Sorry? Sorry? Yes. No, after If You Love Me. Yes, I take it all to be part of the If You Love Me, yes. Yes, because If You Love Me was like a constellation of projects. And for MFA project, it was really, if that could be a biennale, for a city, Yeah. So there's a lot of interventions that we have had. I don't know why the railway kept attracting us as a subject and as a means, as a space and all that. I don't know why.
Yeah, so that was interesting. I think Carrie knows why. Yeah, so that was quite interesting at the time to see my colleagues, Robin, Puji, and one of the most important thing at the time, because the local shed, because it's not a railway station. The way I did my project was at a railway station. There was a bridge, but later I also used a part of the local shed where I wrapped some of the trains and all that. But Robin and his group, they had a really interesting ambition. They wanted to take one of the cranes that had been installed by the British, which was there, which was no longer working. They went to Sekondi, where the headquarters is, and they got permits. And interestingly enough, the man who gave them the permits was the same one who gave me the permits to do my project years before, who had been promoted to Accra and then later Sekondi. He was a chief mechanical engineer. And he made them remove a part of a working machine, some motors. And they brought it all the way to Kumasi to revive a machine that was condemned or dead. And then 20 years. And then they used that to lift. Yeah. It was incredible. So for me, even now to buy the trains, then I bought one of the old cranes that was brought in 1926. It's on the land somewhere. And that was a spirit. The idea that if we could revive a crane that had been dead for 20 years and through art, because politics and others cannot do it. We artists that we are crazy, that they say we are useless and everything. If we can bring something back to life, then there is really some kind of power. Like there's an agency within that, something that we can explore. So that was also very, very, very instrumental into following up the conversations at Sekondi. I think Robin was the first. She took me to the Sekondi site. We went there with her parents on one trip, and then we saw I met like all the men that I know there, like people that he was working with. I met one of the electricians that came to restore. Even just yesterday, I spoke to him. All the train things that you saw here, he's the one that is liaising with the union to let us get all the things and all that. So there were people. There are people, because the railway, when it was built by the British back then, there were like the union was very strong. It was very instrumental in independence and everything. But again, like any other society, people within the union actually want to see things happen. But state-wise, maybe the state is not giving them the necessary push that they need, capital injection, things like that. So we had to rely on these kinds of comrades, people who were, as Carrie said, there are people in all kinds of fields. We have the ports, and there are people in all kinds of other areas, like even like the masons, Mr. Doglo, the bricklayer, people that we're working with. There are people who naturally, they want to be able to do things and make their own contributions and all that. But how to be able to mobilize these spirits and everything was one of the things that I think that their exhibition somehow opened up this. So it was very inspiring, actually. And that even made me go back to the railway, look at the archives and things. And eventually I realized that, okay, fine, we could actually expand the forms, bring transport objects here and there and things like that. Yeah. And the parliament was born out of it because you could use all the elements, the old element from it, in order to be able to build a parliamentary form in Manchester. But then again, the question was, after Manchester, what happens? So then I took the architectural drawings from Manchester and I brought it here. And then we built the parliament as a permanent form. This time around, it was not staging, but we built the work as a theater and as a stage in itself. Because you see, Parliament of Ghosts. So I like the idea that the ghosts are not just something that are coming from the past, but also promises, potentials in the future, like the void that we're exploring within the Ljubljana Graphic Art Biennial, things like that. So we normally stage all kinds of interventions here that maybe in a traditional museum, in a modern art museum, it's not possible. Oh, you know, they give all kinds of cues. Oh, you can't bring plants into the museum. Animals are not allowed. But in this environment, see, there are goats on the streets and everything. You are like looking at them in the eye whilst you are eating. We're eating them. So for us, it's interesting. Also, my question is that, is it possible for us to be able to make interventions or produce work that Western institutions cannot contain? It's very important. Yeah. It's not always that we have to make work. In the previous regime, artists would make work because the work had to fit. Oh, someone has to be able to hang it on his wall and things like that. For me, that is not my concern. I really don't care if someone can buy it or do it. But the point is that the art itself, what is it? Maybe it could be the process. Sometimes the object also becomes part of it. There are so many things that are part of that constellation. So that's why in the previous, most of you have seen those lectures where I show the different stages of the parliament with animals, with the water. And I think Kwasi and his group also, which was very important when the water lilies was here also, it opened up all these other possibilities because that was very early stage and all that. So if we can do this kind of exhibition or project here, most institutions cannot contain these kinds of works. So I think that is where the idea of the ghost come from the idea of potentials and all that. For us, of course, the precarity is important, but also there were certain types of interventions and projects that you needed to do that you couldn't. Even now that we are sitting here, on normal days when it wasn't roofed, it was so sunny and hot. The sunlight was so direct. So now we roofed it, but we left the skylights. But in the greenhouse, which developed from here, we are not roofing the entire building. So we have a second parliamentary form there, which that place it will not be roofed. So that one it's more open because we need it. We need an open roof for rainfall, for sunlight, for planting flowers, spices, and all kinds of other things. So some of them are practical, pragmatic decisions because if we're going to host 500 school kids here and it's raining, that it's futile. It's not going to work. So for me, it's some of those decisions. I remember sometime I showed an image in Kumasi with a roof with the trusses, and caricature was like, "Hey, Charlie, it would have been so nice without the roof." So sometimes it's negotiating between aesthetics, dreams, and then also practical realities and all that. So Salom always said that, "Oh, why do we have to roof it? Why do we have to roof it?" And then Salom said, "Oh, if we roof it, it has to be all glass." And I said, "Hey, Salom, then we have to change our profession from artists to bank robbers so that we can we can get more money." Yeah, so yeah, we are trying.
All right. I think we can move out now.
Well, let me give another suggestion.
Okay.
Now that that one has come up, I think that to save some time, what we can do is because tomorrow we'll still have the space in the program for a proper tour, at least an hour. So with your permission, which I am trying to goad, please, please permit me or let's decide to shift the tour to tomorrow so that we can continue with the programming. And yeah, thank you. So we've had the initial inspirations for a site like this. Ibrahim's passion is always infectious. We'll go straight into our next event, next session. But I want us to hear from our hosts, our backbone for the project. the Kunsthalle Osnabrück. Just, it's their first time in Ghana. Please, let's show love, please. I beg you. First time in Ghana, straight to Tamale. So, just we want to hear initial words from you and greetings from Osnabrück or something.
Thank you, Kwasi. Ibrahim, thank you everyone for having us here. It's very, very exciting, firstly, because we have never been to Ghana, but obviously we have been for 2 years delving into Ibrahim's work. And now we actually have the chance to see it, to understand it, the labor, the economy, also the knowledge production you have built here, all together, the networks, the connections. It's something that is, impressive and inspiring. So we're very much looking forward for the next days. Do you want to add something?
Yeah, also hello from my side. Yeah, it's really touching to be here. I mean, it's really I'm really happy also to see you all back, because we had a great time in Osnabrück. I mean, it was a lot of work to set up this huge work. I mean, you will talk about later, but it's really huge building, and it's really touching now to see where it's actually coming from, how all the materials are somehow woven into each other. Like it's a process, a waving of identities into each other, and this is really touching to have the chance to experience actually the work here on this side anew. So we are really happy for that you're having us here.
And also the other first timer who's in the core group, Bettina Klein. Do you have any words for us, please?
Yeah, well, I could exactly repeat what you were just saying. Maybe additionally for me, it was also not only the last 2 years, but since 2017 when I first met Ibrahim and when we had the chance to work together. So at the DAD Artist in Berlin program, where he was a fellow, and I was head of visual arts at the time. So I recognized so many items in this whole area here, and particularly, of course, seeing the installation in a new setup here now was indeed also very touching to me. Yeah, but we will talk so much more later about everything, so I think we should head on, no?
Yeah. Yes, so welcome once again to the Transfers program. What I'll do is I'll also acknowledge everybody who is part of the project now, so that we know everybody who is involved. We will go alphabetically. We know the institution that is hosting us is the Kunsthalle Osnabrück, and the Transfers public program, which is subtitled From Osnabrück to Tamale, is in partnership with SCCA Tamale. So SCCA and its and Red Clay and Nkrumah Voli-ni are the affiliates. We're also affiliated to blaxTARLINES Kumasi, which is the contemporary art hub based in the Kumasi College of Art, out of which most of our practices were created, and Exit Frame Collective, two of which are here. So the participants on this program, we have Professor Akosua Adomakwan-Pofu joining us from Castle. Okay. Professor, and Dr. Bernard Akwe Jackson is also here. Kiara Figone couldn't physically make it, but she's also in our networks. Isaac JC, who is here. Shall we give a round of applause to Isaac JC? Dr. Thorsten Hazer, who is a historian based in Osnabrück. He will not be able to join us, but he will, on Thursday, we have a session with him via Zoom. So we'll see him and Klaus Weber. But Priscilla Kennedy. Yeah, Priscilla Kennedy. Is Priscilla here? Ah, okay. They went to the airport. They'll be back soon. So Priscilla Kennedy is also one of the artists who is uh, co, our co-worker artist. Bettina Klein, of course, who we have just met. Koliko. Koliko is a collective. It's a musical band which they are on their way. So they are on the road to Tamale now. They should arrive by 4 p.m. or something. So yeah, Ibrahim Mahama, of course, our artist extraordinaire. Zora Opoku and the Revival are also joining us. They'll be in soon from the airport. Gabriel Shimerot, who is also here, a first time. No, please. First time in Tamale, perhaps, but he's been to Ghana some years ago, and he's based in Hamburg. He's a curator. We've worked with, Kelvin Hazel, myself. We've done different projects, so it's a pleasure to host Gabriel. Anna Yela and Juliana Shikedant, who we have just met, are here. Professor Karikacha Seydu is also hardly representing. And Professor Klaus Weber, who is also a historian based in Frankfurt Oder, right? Yeah. So he's based in Frankfurt. He will also join us on Thursday via Zoom. And we look forward to all such sessions. So now that we have gotten this clear, we will just go straight into the impetus. And we, Bettina and I, this is more like freestyling. So, she will jump in anytime she feels like. I will also continue. But when the so first of all, I was invited to work on this project by Anya Lukinkemper, who is a curator and writer at the time working at the Kunsthalle Osnabrück. So she had, with the directors, discussed which artists to invite because the Kunsthalle is in its 30th year this year. So it's an anniversary year for the Kunsthalle. So 2 years ago, we were, contemplating which artists to invite for the show, and Ibrahim's name came up. So when Anya approached, so in our along the line, Anya could not continue working on the project, so Bettina Klein, gracefully joined the team, and we were thinking, that because Ibrahim and us here, we are always contemplating, because the blaxTARLINES orientation and the disposition that we have. This is a quote by Okunyewezo, which we love so much, which we like to use. And here, Okunyewezo was contemplating on the importance of Africa playing the role of host to the art world in different ways, And for me, Ibrahim is one such artist who is taking this question on. So when the conception of the project came in, even though it was to be based in Osnabrück, the idea was also that how do we, because this is an artist who is concerned with the infrastructure of art production. So why not also find a way to bring the project so that we are also responding to something like this, hosting, such experience. According to Enwezo, he says that I think that we not only need just institutions, we need thriving and sustainable institutions. It's not just being guests, we have to be hosts as well. We have to play a role. If we want international contemporary art, we have to host it. And that is why the Johannesburg Biennale is so important. So here he was talking about a transnational exhibition, which he had worked on. But Ibrahim, of course, evidenced this kind of ethics. So, it was always that. And here's another quote that resonates with how we deal with space and relationships and hospitality. We say that it's an Arabic, it's by an Arabic poet, but it says, "Our guest, if you visit us, you will see us as guests, and you will be the master of the house." Something like this is what we aspire to. So when Ibrahim is asking, what is a studio today? It's like walking into a space like this, which is essentially his private environment, but not, everybody feeling welcome at different times of the day, and then how that transitions or how that translates into an art practice that can be sustained and that can create new models to what we already know. So we will also acknowledge the bigger team, because again, like dealing with an artist of his stature, he's always implicating bigger collectives, bigger groups, bigger forces in terms of labor, in terms of mobilizing resources, and so on. So you saw the video that was playing. So there are weavers, there are tailors, there are head porters. There are so many different bodies and groups implied in the work. So we moved this to Osnabrück. So in Osnabrück also we formed temporary collectives, mostly based on volunteers who joined us, because we had a 10-day period where we were producing, putting the finishing touches before installation. So we are grateful to the Osnabrück team. This to the left, we have the technical team, the construction team, who put everything together, led by Raimund Appel. Is he here? Okay. Yeah, Raimund was eager to be here as well, but yeah. So Raimund and the team, and here we see Francis and Benjamin. Please give it up for Francis and Benjamin, who have been so instrumental all the way through. And of course, our volunteers, the Kunsthalle team, the press team, everybody who, this is only a small group, but we just want to acknowledge everybody. And also the website, the link is up here. You can see more photographs. So transfers is happening. Let me go here. Yeah, transfers is happening on 3 main premises. So first of all, it was invited as a project responding to the 30th anniversary of the Kunsthalle Osnabrück, as mentioned. And then it was also a project that was, this year is the 375th anniversary of the Westphalia Peace Treaty, which was signed in what you would call the twin towns of Osnabrück and Münster. We'll come to that. So it's also an anniversary year. So we had 2 anniversaries to make merry in. And then we also, Osnabrück has a rich textiles production history, which dates all the way back to the late 14th century. So, that's how textiles came into the picture. So these are the 3 registers that we wanted to think through. So the third one being textiles, but particularly linen production, because in that region of Westphalia, they could grow very quality flax, which is the raw material out of which linen is produced. So it became an important, they had an important, pre-industrial production outfit, and it also was a trade city out of which, global entanglements and networks emerged. So we wanted to think through the trope of textiles as in a few registers, which is, we wanted to think about textiles as a signifier, or something that points to something beyond itself, or like a decoy or something like that. And then we wanted to think of textiles also just as image, and what kind of image this can engender, and then also considering it as a means of production. Ibrahim's materialist interest being about the conditions of production, distribution, consumption, and so forth, and then textile as a physical object, as material. Then we also wanted to consider the technological dimension of it, because in the history of economics and technology and so forth, textiles has also been instrumental. Then we also wanted to consider, that framework of textiles as a form of sociality. So, through that, and particularly with Mahama's practice, so not as an autonomous thing, but, the relational dimensions of textiles. So then, there were trade and economic interests, and then we're looking all the way from the 14th century until the present. So you see that the scope is very broad. So we didn't feel that our the exhibition in Osnabrück was enough. In fact, if our budget could allow us, we could go a few more years, with programming. But at some point, finitude catches up to you. So a lot of back and forth, Here you see the working sessions. To the far left, we've had to do a lot of work remotely. So Bettina, Raymond, myself, Julian and co. Zoom was our friend, and sometimes we're in different parts of the world, so we really can't meet. We have to do this. In this particular time, Ibrahim was in Ljubljana, so we're always just trying to catch each other, but we had to stay on it. There were a few sites which we had considered before we settled on the former Galeria Kaufhof. One of them being the Dominican Kirche, is German. Dominicanen Kirche, which is in the Kunsthalle Osnabrück complex. So you see that the main entrance of the Kunsthalle is here, but the church, which goes all the way back to when the 16th century, 13th century, good. So it was, but it's now used as an exhibition space, but for the Kunsthalle. But then we were considering all these potential sites, and there's a museum further down the road from the Kunsthalle that we were considering. So maybe Bettina can help us with a bit of context on that.
Yeah, so indeed, oh, hello, Zara. Hi. Can you just flip one further? Okay. Yeah, so I'm based in Berlin, so for me, Osnabrück was also completely new terrain, and I had to find my marks over the time. So I had some visits together with Ibrahim, some alone, because for him, obviously, it was always a much bigger trip to do, and of course also with Kwasi. Anna and Juliane were indicating also many ways or sites maybe that had already been exploited by public art program projects. So I went on long walks through the city, and this was one site also that I got interested in, the Straßburger Platz, which is a war memorial for the war, the German-French war in 1870-71. And actually, there is a connection to the site, which we finally ended up choosing, but it might lead too far now. I mean, there's a sculpture on top that you see that was actually brought there by a school project, and it is replacing the Germania statue that used to be on this monument, and the monument used actually to be about at the site where we ended up doing the project. Yeah. Then we have here the Higa Tor. This is one also called the Waterloo Gate, which is one of the city gates of the fortification of Osnabrück. this one is apparently one that has been used so often in public projects that the Kunsthalle's recommendation was do not go for it. Then that would have been a very ambitious one. That's the Osnabrück main train station. Knowing about Ibrahim's interests for the railway, I thought this could be fantastic, of course, but when approaching the city, they were telling me, there's construction site gonna be at that period. And of course, also here we have to do with architectural heritage, which would have been a way more complex challenge for us. There were many more, the Catholic Dome, the City Hall, but in the end, we're very glad with the one that we found.
Do we go straight into the Kaufhof? Okay, so we can, let's see. So that's what the project could have been. This is what the project became. So Bettina will continue again.
So there was in one of the trips, I walked from the train station that we just saw down that road that leads directly to this building. So on the right-hand side, we see the state as it was about in the moment when I came there. It had been empty for several years already. It used to be one of the big German department stores, this chain of department stores called Galeria Kaufhof, which is actually, it's a very complex and long history, which chain was actually bought by which other. So we will, no, please stay for a moment here. So here on the left-hand side, it is still operating, and when we asked for access, Ibrahim was, when I showed him the building, he was immediately convinced that it could be the right spot. So we asked for permission to visit the insides, and we realized actually there was some improvised tombstone of the former workers of this department store, because obviously so many people had lost their jobs in this moment when it closed down. And this is a phenomenon not only reduced to Osnabrück, but it's basically like all over Germany. We have this phenomenon now that these huge department stores that have been built like after the war, mostly in the 50s, 60s, 70s, are closing down. Obviously there's the Amazon concurrence, then there came the COVID years, and now we have a quite complicated situation because we have these voids somehow in the city centers of all these big cities. And here maybe we can go further to what that site actually was, because no, one before. So the site called Neumarkt, it's actually a larger site in which at the time in the 19th century there were a lot of banks and also shops, but hotels, international hotels actually, with a large audience coming from all over the world. And this is one of the main hotels called Hotel Germania, and that was exactly actually at the site where the Kaufhof building was standing now. So it was run by someone called Eduard Petersilie, which is kind of a funny name because it's means like Edward Purcell, or Parcel, sorry. And this guy and the whole story also of this hotel and his visitors was mentioned in a famous novel by Erich Maria Remarque called The Black Obelisk. And this novel is situated in between war times. So between First and Second World War, a moment of hardcore inflation in Germany and of a lot of social problematic situations that were, of course, helping the National Socialists to come to power. And this site was also one of the meeting points for the early groups of National Socialists gatherings. So after a couple of years in the war, it got destroyed. So can we have the next one? Yeah, it got destroyed by a fire through the British air, air raid. Thank you. Yeah, that was in August 42, and it was not only this hotel, but the whole area actually was quite destroyed, and there were also, because there had been like bunker constructions around, and so the site then, can we flip one more? Was available. It's one of these voids in the 1950s. So now you're here. This is a photo from 1957 showing the building as it was shortly after the opening, which was in 1955. So that was the first big department store in the city, and we have here on the right-hand side an image of the opening. They had 40,000 visitors for the opening, apparently. So Kaufhaus Merkur, that was the first name that it had, and so Merkur is also, that's another complicated story, because before there was Merkur, there was Schocken department stores, and they were Jewish-run department stores, and here some Merkur was buying those, and then later on those were being bought by Horton, and so it's a long story that I cannot completely develop on here, but can we have one more? Yeah, so here we see the construction site. Yeah, one more. Yeah, and and again the opening and the mass of people standing there. Here's an insight into the very modern 1950s restaurant there. Yeah, and then so this place has been run as a department store until this moment where we are now, and now there is the Invest. There's an investment company called Invest, and they are developing the Osnabrücker Ding, what they call it, the Osnabrück thing, which is thought to be a cohabitation between like shops and the ground floor. But then the University of Osnabrück's departments of art, education, and textile design will also move into this building, probably next, well, not next year, I suppose, but maybe in 2 years. And there will be also, additionally, there will be co-working spaces and so on. So there's some hope for, let's say, a more lively city center in that sense. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You see that this is the future, if you like, of, or at least at the time that we were concluding the research and about to launch. It was at this stage. So this is what it's proposed to be. And this is how we dreamed about it currently. So Ibrahim becoming conversant with these histories, the complex geopolitical dimensions of the site, and also its strategic location in terms of being a very principal area for movement, like, and traffic, human traffic, vehicular traffic, and so on. It became a very exciting prospect, and it took us between January and May to conclude the agreements. A little, because the show was originally scheduled to open in May, right? Yeah, and then we had to move it because to July. We got a few, delays with production and so forth. But this is Ibrahim's, to the left is Ibrahim's initial sketch. And here he had imagined to respond to, these three registers by also doing work that he hadn't really done on such a scale before. So he combined the batakaris, which he had been collecting since the past 10 years. We have some in the archives room when you exit, you make a left, you see more there. So the batakaris, the smocks was one element. Then the jute sacks, his signature material, or the one that is very well known in the mainstream of the art world, the worn out jute sacks that have been used to bag charcoal and are at their point of failure, out of which all of these promises or these beautiful environments have emerged. And then we also commissioned some newly produced strip woven textiles, which were produced. He has a community of weavers that he works with. There are new works they are working on, but this was so these were the three elements that came together for the project. So you see the different parts. The brown parts are the jute sacks, the petal-like, motifs on the blue services at the batakaris, and then the strip woven fabrics are the blue parts. So these are the sketches developed by Francis Gionu, who was leading the technical side. So they kind of took the dimensions of the building and broke it down into different components and how much material we would need. And so the production was between Ghana and we also had some sacks already making their rounds in Europe, Portugal, Castle, and so forth. So we had a lot of sacks already in Europe, but then we had to ship more, and then we had to ship the textiles and the batakaris as well. So this is how things come together. But let's go further here. So yeah, there are two phases, as has been hinted. So the first phase was the public outdoor installation, which lasted between 8th of July until 1st of October in Osnabrück. And then we thought to now emphasize the research and the theoretical dimensions of the project. So how do we, deal with these questions? And then that's where the discursive program here, the idea was born. So the Peace of Westphalia, which I will just come to briefly. Yeah, the 30th anniversary we've dealt with. That's the first register. So the second part is we wanted to make work that was that would, whether we liked it or not, be embedded in the context of the Peace of Westphalia. So what was the Peace of Westphalia? How does it apply to us? What does it mean to us? What does it mean in Europe? So these are just briefly the Westphalia Peace Treaty are treaties concluded in 1648 between the Holy Roman Empire, Austria, Brandenburg, the Dutch Republic, France, and so on, in the towns of Münster and Osnabrück. So I think the Orthodox faction signed in Münster, and the Protestant, the side signed in Osnabrück. And the implications of this treaty is that it amongst other things, it ended the era of sectarian warfare in Europe during the infamous 30 Years' War, which devastated the economy and things of Europe. And then it's also what inaugurated the principle of religious freedom and tolerance in Europe. This moment, after almost a century of conflict. It's also one that established the sovereignty of its member states and balanced power between the Holy Roman Empire and the princes and in these other territories. And it's also touted as one that inaugurated international diplomacy into what we now call world politics. So rather than resolving conflicts through military force, or armed force, let's sit down, let's come to the table, even though we fail at it always, And then the Westphalia Peace Treaty is also known to have established the earliest foundation for Mike. So in terms of what became, what before the nation state paradigm became, or the foundations for this kind of nation state system, and also in terms of liberal political frameworks that we are all implicated in or governed by today, this treaty plays a very important or foundational role. Some of the questions that came up was, peace is a very loaded term. So peace, on whose terms, peace, what do you mean by that? Because, what is peace for one does not necessarily translate into the same for the other. And because this was a trans-regional project, always moving beyond the European context, we were also coming in with our own questions and concerns. Let's read this by my professor Beatrice, and she says that while the successful negotiations of Osnabrück and Münster brought the long-awaited peace to the people of Europe, the now pacified states turned their gaze outward as they expanded and founded colonies. Thus, it was not until the Peace of Westphalia in the 17th century that economic empires could emerge, whose financial resources and technologies made possible the great expansionist moves of the Netherlands in the 17th century, England in the 18th and 19th centuries, and the German Empire in the late 19th century. So even if Ghana or Tamale and Osnabrück are not directly connected in any, there may not be any direct connections. There are other entanglements that, imply all of us, because the history of imperialism affects all of us. So starting from there, we had to think about the project in its global orientation, because if we're talking about trade, economics, and these questions, you are not only dealing with regional questions. So, the transatlantic slave economy is implied in this, because not only are we looking at the history of textiles production, but Osnabrück linen was used as the material. There was a very quality linen. So when the new worlds, so-called, were carved out and colonized and things like that, they were used to sew garments for the forced laborers who were working on these plantations. So and it wasn't just the African captives who had been taken. It was also the European so-called indentured servants. So this was the mainly, Osnabrücken linen was sought after. It's not the only, form of linen, but Osnabrück's linen was of such a good quality that it was, in terms of during the mercantile era, it was very much sought after. And so now we come to the third register of the project, which deals with linen squarely, and this is where Ibrahim made a decision about what materials to use. So Osnabrück, based on this, is partly so with Professor Klaus Weber and co. It is their research, interests, the direct and indirect involvement in the transatlantic slave economy, of Germany before they, formally created colonies. They were also involved via trade, like their merchants and so forth. So this is one angle that we're looking at, and Osnabrück being one of Westphalia's major indigenous textile producing cities. And it also grows very quality flax plant. You see it here. This is when it's blossoming. And linen was Germany's most important export commodity to the rest of Europe during the early modern maritime trade, in addition to the trade of metalware and glassware. And according to the German historian Klaus Weber, who we will hear from in 2 days, linen made up to 90% of the German-English trade by the end of the 17th century. So, here I'll just quote from Klaus Weber. He says that in one of his texts, he says that all the Negroes and the poor white people in the 18th century British West Indies were generally clothed with German linens from Westphalia, which is the region, Osnabrück is, with 70,000 slaves on Barbados, usually clothed with foreign Osnabrücks. And this is coming from the parliamentary papers, of Britain in 1975. It says that the fabric for these items of clothing were produced in Osnabrück. So these are overhanging concerns that we could tap into. And because Ibrahim is interested not just in the superficial layers of art, we also had to dig further deeper into these political, historical, and translate them into aesthetic questions. So, but the jute sacks that Ibrahim uses are also generally made from different materials, being hemp. Some are made from hemp, some are made from jute, and some are made from flax, the very material that is used to produce linen. So there was no need to go too far to find a connection with what he was doing. And Osnabrück being a trade center, and this is the this is at the Museumsquartier. It's in Osnabrück, and here they kind of archive this history very well. So you see the stamps that were used to, these are the seals. So these seals were used to, stamp on the goods to ascertain that they were Osnabrücks. They were called Trubon Osnabrücks, and other nicknames that they had. So these are the stamps that could tell. They're like the quality assurance, that they had passed the quality assurance tests. So here you see it. It's no longer in use, but we can visit it more. So we can pause here. I guess these are just the three, broad areas, and then if we have any questions, concerns, conversations, we can proceed. I think we are doing well on time, Abby. Yeah, it's 3 now, and maybe we pause here. Yeah. So thank you for your time. Yeah. So on our schedule, we have roughly 30 minutes for this session. We can continue, or if you want to take a break also, we could. But we are here, so if there are any contributions, rebuttals, clarification points, we can do that before we slip into the next event item.
Hi. Yeah, thank you, Kwasi and Bettina, for this very insightful and informative presentation, and to all of you for organizing this project and making this happen. It's powerful to see what can happen when artists and curators come together, especially those who share both capacities. Ibrahim's practice tends to engage fragments and residues of history through creative, aesthetic, and productive means. And I see how, as curators, you guys have gone deep and far in connecting those kind of curious questions to historical conditions and moments and movements. So I would love to ask you more about how that experience was for you, of kind of this chemical interaction between these two ways of entering a project.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned before I had been working with Ibrahim before, so I knew about what I should expect. This one obviously was a completely different challenge, as we're working in public space, and with a lot of restrictions and a much bigger team. So there's so many decisions that had to be taken in a group process, from the first research and decisions of sites to permissions. In that sense, it was really crucial to have an institution like Kunsthalle Osnabrück, being a city institution with all the good connections, of course, to receive these permissions. And still, it was a very complicated process. And no, I was actually realizing now when writing an essay for the publication that is about to be published soon, that Chiara wanted to present tomorrow, but unfortunately cannot be here. How odd also some of the connections might seem, like because it's as the work is, it is kind of a patchwork also, of all of us, of our interests, of, I mean, looking at the site, I was just wondering what was there before. And then if you delve into these histories and in the literature and local history and its global connections, I thought that was very largely also informing all the project. And additionally, of course, also working together with Benjamin and Francis on site on the material, and having all the reactions also of the Osnabrück audience while we were producing and installing. That was a very mixed experience, I have to say. Like in the first days when we started putting the work up, actually these images that you see here right now, there was an article appearing in the press that was a really extremely disrespectful, racist, horrible article, and a lot of letters following by readers that even got the thing more complicated. And it was a complicated process, but then also we had a lot of support from the side of the city, from other journalists. So I think the reflection into the city, that was really also something very important. Yeah.
A little bit. And so from my perspective, when the invitation came, I was excited. I was also, but I had been, I was asking Ibrahim to consider the invitation, hoping that he would be able to. And when we got to talking, he was immediately telling me that he doesn't, the idea that came in, he doesn't want to do the same things or use the sax in the same way. Everybody knows the sax. He's not a sax artist. So, and I was like, yeah, I wouldn't work with you if it's the same thing that we're going to do. So we didn't know what to do initially in the early years. And some of the benefits of having, the different layers of the relationship. So being friends, but also, like peers, growing up together. I mean, in terms of our professional life and our mature years, like we really did come up together, So it was also a challenge. But how do you do this? It's easy to take it for granted. Oh, he's my friend. I know his work. I'm always in the studio. Yeah. But it always throws a new challenge. And that's how I always work with my colleagues. So I wanted him to, just take his time and come up with something that he was more comfortable with. And that would be also, that would respond to the, the breadth of questions that had been raised through this invitation. So, and for me also, it was quite daunting because these are histories that I didn't know before. Prior to this, I say this that, prior to 2021, I didn't know Osnabrück, never heard of it, but I was going to Germany, So when I went to Osnabrück, when I talked to, Anna, Julian, after the first few meetings, I realized immediately how important and necessary and, how we had to take our time to deal with this. So one of the things I'm grateful for is the duration, how long we had to unpack these and take our time to delve, because we had to learn these histories. I mean, I had to learn these histories. Ibrahim had to learn it. Bettina is, it was already on already knew these. I'm teasing. But yeah, as a process, it was a learning process for all of us, and professionally, we respect each other a lot. So we're just always pushing each other, and it's not always smooth, right? And yeah, those tensions really generate their own qualities as well. So working with Ibrahim in this way, I'd never worked with him like this before, because even though we've done projects over the years, it's always a different attitude. He's always growing, I'm always growing. So we wanted to really just always push ourselves to what we already knew and could do, and he always does himself, and I had to catch up. So working in this way was really enriching, because we think of exhibitions as moments to learn and just and to take our time and build something. We really took it serious, and through that we were able to uncover. So our website, for example, is one space that we have designed as a space that will constantly be kind of updating with more information, things that we learn, through our process, through our research process, and to be able to share it. And this discursive program is also in that direction. How do you create moments that further disseminate these issues and concerns, and how do you make it public? In addition to what the exhibition is doing. So, in our own small ways, we had these concerns.
Thank you to all of you. It's very fascinating just listening and watching all of this. And thanks for the invitation to be a part of this. So from where I sit and from what you've shared, I'm guessing that some of this history was also unknown to people from Osnabrück who were coming to this, to this exhibition. Don't give the mic away so fast. You are also going to answer. The underbelly of yarn and all of that, right? And Kwasi, you've talked about, some of the words that you distributed this afternoon. There was resistance, there was community, I think, there was disruption and all of that. So I'm just wondering, and to both of you, and to you as well, I suppose. In your engagements with people who came, did you experience people having aha moments? Was there any learning? Were they like, wow, okay, we didn't know this political underbelly, and did you have those moments of gratification? I'm hoping you're going to say yes and give us some examples, but yeah, I'll be curious about that.
Yeah, indeed. And I would say that's the advantage of being in public space, because you encounter people in the street all the time while installing. We had amazement, admiration, and we had hate. That would be the extremes, and everything in between. But it was actually great. There were some critical discussions that I had, mostly with older people, that were just saying, like, how can you, this part of the city is already ugly enough. How can you add dirty jute sacks to that? You know, that was mainly in the beginning, like when we installed, it was, we began at that site where there were only jute sacks, yeah, but then when I explained the backgrounds, I mean, there were really moments. This one guy, I had maybe half an hour discussion with him, and in the end, he said, like, yeah, I think I learned something here now. And yeah, for these moments, and also for these people who are going to spread the word, and hold something against this unfortunately still existing racial prejudices that are in the society, and all the very we know it all already. Contemporary art is crap. We don't need this. You're gonna spend all our public fundings for this. Are you really kidding us? Yeah, so there were arguments against it, and I think very crucial also to this was, of course, during the duration of the exhibition, that the Kunsthalle's team, mediation team, was doing a great job. So there were a lot of like ongoing, like for all ages also, and different social groups. Guided tours on the side, but also workshops in the Kunsthalle. I think that contributed largely. And also the fact that so many people were helping. So we had about 100 people helping the production, and they were all volunteering. So coming to this site every day, and exactly also all ages, like the oldest were over 80 actually, who were coming to sit. Yeah, so I think that was largely helping the cause. Yeah.
I thought it's maybe good to explain a bit more why the people were so reacted so emotionally to this installation. I mean, in fact, it's contemporary art, and most of the people reacting emotionally to contemporary art at all. But the spot in the city, it's really like a melting pot. Maybe you see it, you mention it, but maybe it's better to explain it in more specific again. There are a lot of construction site at this. Maybe it's also a combination of street junction on one place, and there are a lot of lost places, houses. So also like a dysfunction to say, but like where the city somehow sold the buildings or didn't rebuy the buildings in the last years, and the investment didn't get well, and so on. And so what used to be like an underground underneath the place in the 60s, there was a time in Germany where people thought it's better to have organic relation between cars and people, and so there are a lot of things going on, but most of the people have to pass this junction every day to go to work, to go to university, to go home. And it's really like it's a 50 minutes walk from the Kunsthalle, but the Kunsthalle is situated, we showed you tomorrow again, but it's situated in a completely different area of the city. So for us as well, it's a place where we don't so often go, but we have to pass it obviously. But most of the inhabitants see the work, and we knew about this, but I mean, still, just when you install a piece like Ibrahim's, then you just feel the power of it when you just start about. But for me, I mean, it was really touching how over the time also the discussions changed with the work. I mean, in Germany, I call it like the Eiffel Tower effect. That from the beginning people hated, and at the end we also had emails that we should keep it. And sometimes I was waiting at the bank on the opposite side of the street to wait for some guest coming from outside of the city because the main station is close by. And I was listening to the people passing the installation, and it was really, really lovely how they either still were looking at it or ignoring it because they have to walk there every day. So it's already a part of their daily life, or they're giving only guided tours. So like 2-sentence guided tours, so exhibition, they're saying, yeah, so what I understood it's about inequality. And so, yeah, that's like a 2-sentence PR text, but this is what the work is about. And this was really beautiful also here, not to mention, I mean, over 100 people from Osnabrück were creating the work together with us and Ibrahim and Ibrahim's team. And most of them also came to the opening and never been in touch with art. And this was really beautiful how I think, I mean, in art, it's always a question about responsibility. When will it come alive? And I still have the feeling this is a work which will bloom every 6 months anew. And this is what it makes it so special for us that we could make this possible for Osnabrück together with you. You don't need to.
Well, yes? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I think what I wanted to add is also, I think if you go with art into public space, it also means confrontation, and you have to be prepared for discussion. I think what developed over time is that people had actually, I mean, there was so many weeks where people actually wrote letters to the newspaper that were like, I hate this artwork. But then the other week, people were defending it. And actually, you know, it was great arguments. It was actually discussing over letters, which like seemed old school, but also like very beautiful. And I think this is what it is about. And then we can also not forget, people talked about it like this would be like the material and like everything would be so alien to, you know, the Osnabrücker society. But I mean, it's obviously not true. I met people who said, oh, you know, strip woven cloth. I know that we have that at home. So it's obviously also a part of the population of Osnabrück that was very, very familiar with the batakaris, with the strip woven cloth. And actually somehow we came also into contact with these people who might not have come to the Kunsthalle before. So this is something, there's also something very beautiful that came out of this project for like the institution, yeah, opening up, or like actually people feeling welcomed by us as an institution. So yeah, the huge gratitude.
Yeah, sorry, and now we're here now, I'm feeling better with the heat. I wanted to add 2 anecdotes, Mauna, after I stopped for a while talking about the projects, but now it's coming back. And maybe one thing, because we had to secure the installation 24/7 at the end, and also one of my anecdotes. Everybody of the project has other anecdotes. This is also really beautiful. So, is I had to introduce one of the guards to the installation to secure it, and he said it was meanwhile the setup, and he said, "Yeah, I saw it on TikTok already, but I didn't know that it's art." So, because everybody was taking photos of it, and I find it really touching that these pictures are also in the world and nobody knows it's art, because they can't credit it because they don't know. I mean, we did a lot of PR and also been in a really close touch and exchange with a local newspaper before. So you could be informed about the project, but not everything reaches everybody. So this I find really beautiful, and as well with all the batakaris. I mean, now I know these things because you teach me, and but also a lot of Afro-German, but also Ghanaian people are living, or from the West Coast are living in Osnabrück, and I also get in touch with them, obviously, but also I always thinking about their passing the work, going to work, and most of the white Germans, they don't know what it is, but they know, and this somehow I find really beautiful that they have. It's more like to have a secret. It's just for them somehow, and that makes somehow also Ibrahim's work really poetic. You can really jump in it from different points of a swimming pool of metaphors and meanings and layers.
And my anecdote is one that is from the public program. So the city, in collaboration with the Kunsthalle, had organized a session because the tensions in the media and in the public were also quite strong. So we wanted to create a moment where different voices would be heard. And so this is where we had like a talk in the Sparkasse, it's a bank, the hall, one of the halls in the bank. So, historians were invited, curators of art in public space were invited, city officials were invited, and then, the curatorial team was also part of it. So this was to, bring the elephant in the room into the public and then we can trash it out. But you see that we coming from here and practicing as we have, we're already attuned to antagonism. So to be honest, we anticipated it, and also because of the sacks can be quite traumatic to deal with if your conception of art is something beautiful or pristine or on a white wall. It can disturb your worldview, and encountering a work that is filthy, bent in some parts, just charcoal, different. What is this? And we understand them to be legitimate reactions to the work. So when it emerged, we were hoping that it won't happen, but when it happened, we were like, okay, now let's talk, because really these histories are jarring. They are not comfortable histories. They are not. So one thing that came up during that session was, after I was talking about the class implications of the material choices and how the social stratifications, even in terms of international relations and geopolitics, has been structured. You hear of these first world, second world, third world categorizations. They are not just simple things. They come with privileges, they come with exclusions, they come with all of these things, and the economic histories can be traced back to some of these moments. So if we are bringing this project here, we're not just making art that you would see, or you would move past and be okay with. But we're saying, let's have a conversation about our shared histories. Let's have a conversation about how, your moment of peace disturbed mine, right? So if this artwork disturbs your peace, it's not is no pun intended, but it's not that it's not that we are provoking anything. It's the substance of our relations. That is really what is structuring, that side from this side. And how do we through art create new questions, new possibilities, which is really what we think of politics. And Ibrahim is an artist who pushes those questions to the fore, creating new worlds in this world that we have, with all of its problems, with all of its conventions, with all of its structures. How do we still, carve out a space for new possibilities? And so, those questions, and that was after that session, I could see that, there was an understanding, but at least there was some respect, of the artistic and curatorial positions, because not just how you feel about the work. If it's that alone, then, but how do we now go to questions that we can both verify, we can both come to terms with, and we can both discuss with the art, through the art. So that's what I learned, and it was really beautiful to have that in all of its complexity. We have about 2 minutes.
Thank you, everybody. I wasn't invited here, but I think I spoke to Professor Adumako, and then I was like, no, let me take time and then listen to this conversation. Before coming here, I thought art was just painting, but what I've seen here, it means art transcend beyond borders of just ordinary painting. That an idea of art has now evolved into a whole community where people are benefiting. I saw a library for school children, and it actually depicts the African lifestyle that we have missed for some time. It is a space I got blown away, and I just want to say thank you, Ibrahim, for such a masterpiece. This is awesome. This is incredible, and I am just proud of this edifice I have seen, and continue being awesome in your space, and best wishes.
We have space for one more. Bernard has.
Thank you very much. Just a quick comment on the Batakari you were saying. I mean, because you also mentioned something about the work blooms every 6 months. And for me, from a distance, the Batakaris also creates image of like flowers actually blooming. And so maybe it's a bouquet to the world, and quite mimicking the water lilies that bloomed some time ago. Maybe we see more blooms coming. Thank you.
Right. Any more comments? We are on time. It's 3:30 now. So in the end, you see, the paradox was there. We started late, but we are on time. Ibrahim, that's how he does. Always contradictions. So it's 3:30. We can take a short break, and then we continue the conversation. But we come back into Isaac Jesse's intervention. So when we come back, we'll introduce him, his work, and he'll tell us a little bit about what he's doing. Again, the fragments, or what we wanted to do was that Ibrahim's practice is really like he likes to use a term void, So the void is more where multiplicities thrive. So how he wanted different angles, different to also continue the conversation through their own practices. So these are brief moments, but we are inserting them into the history, the legacy of the work. So we'll come back to Isaac Jesse's intervention. We can come back in 20 minutes. Thank you all.